Welcome to the Hearts Entwined Podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined Podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today I've got a lovely lady who I've only recently met, but we've really touched and connected, and I'd love to grab her and get her on the podcast. And her name is Genevieve Gresset. Good morning, Genevieve.
Hi, Lyn. Hi. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me on.
It's a lovely, exotic sounding name. Where's that from?
Well, it's actually French. I was named after the patron saint of Paris because my father is French. So Genevieve comes from the Parisian saint. And yeah, so I don't know if he wanted me to be a saintly daughter or what his expectations were. But yeah, no, that's where it comes from. It's been a bit of a hindrance, because not everyone gets it right, and sometimes I have to say it and shorten it, but yeah, I answer to anything nowadays, Lyn.
Oh, bless you. Well, welcome to the podcast. As I say, I really wanted to grab you to get hold of you because I know you're a popular lady who's got plenty of work going on. So the first thing I think our audience would love to know is there's a little bit about you and what led you to get into this industry? Okay,
so I'm really passionate about what I do. I think that's the first thing that everyone says is, oh, wow, you're so passionate about what you do. And I really am, because there's nothing better than getting people together. It's the most rewarding thing in the world. And especially when you see weddings or people living together and babies and all sorts of other things, you can't get a bigger sense of achievement than actually putting people together. And I got married very young. I was with my husband from about the age of 18. So, we met very early on, and I always felt really bad for friends and people that I met that weren't in love. I just couldn't understand how they could live without love in their lives. It was just one of these hopeless romantics, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I started something called the Secret Supper Club and the Surrey Dining Club, which was just originally for friends who were single. And I'd get them round for supper every now and then and just have a few single friends together or take them out and get them to meet up. And soon I found, I was quite good at this. And within a year, I had about eight couples that had coupled off. Some had got married. And so I turned it into a bit of a business. And within the first year of making it more of a business venture, I had 1,000 members on my books. And this is before the internet. So I'm going back 20 something years. And this is before the internet. So I had, details on a Rolodex and all of those sorts of things. And I had to ring people up and fax people details. So it was a very time consuming thing to do. But it got to the point where every week we had a secret supper. And I just loved it. I was in recruitment at the time, and I was working in recruitment. So I was putting people together from a business professional point of view. So it seemed quite easy to do it from a relationship perspective. And from there, I went and trained as a coach, a transformational life coach, and then specialized in dating and relationships. And I bought my first club in London and put everything under one umbrella. So the Secret Supper Club, events, because as you can imagine, from the Secret Supper Club became other things. So there were other events that I ran, got involved in styling, and really wanted to be a one-stop shop to give people everything that they needed. And that grew into doing retreats for people, because I found that a lot of people who were single, a lot of them had a story, and some of them kept themselves deliberately single because they didn't have the confidence, or they were, still in pain and needed to move on. So hence we put together the retreats, and I run that with psychologist Dr. Lyn Smith. And it all kind of snowballed from there. And now I do a lot in the media, I'm CEO of Elect Club. I run the retreats, and I'm a media presenter as well. So there's a lot that goes on in the dating and relationship world for me at the moment.
Excellent. Well, that's a lovely, lovely history and brief story of what's led you to be famous for what you're doing now. So that's great. I think, we spoke off air about what would be a great subject to speak about. And I actually, know this is an excellent topic to touch on, just from relating to my own clients who have problems around expectations. But I think this topic about creating healthy expectations is going to be massively useful for the audience to hear about. So what would you initially advise people or teach people in terms of what you share around your own wisdom on the subject of creating healthy expectations, Genevieve?
Well, I think the first thing really is that with expectations, people always come into dating with unrealistic expectations. I don't think I've met in over 20 years anybody that's come into it with realistic expectations on any level, whether they're selling themselves short, or what we're seeing nowadays is people's expectations are so unrealistic and they have such long lists of what they're expecting to find in a partner that not only are they setting themselves up to fail, but they're setting up anyone that crosses their paths to fail as well, which is really sad. And in particular, women are the most guilty ones with this one. Men can be too if they've been single for a little while. But in particular, women really do have a tick list and have an unrealistic and unhealthy expectations of what they want. I mean, some of the things that I've heard over the years, that there's very little I haven't heard in 20 years plus that I thought, here's someone who's really got it right. Some people have no expectations whatsoever. So they will date everyone and anyone and then wonder why they're struggling to meet anybody. It's because they have nothing that they're working towards. They've got no deal breakers. They're just sort of, I think those people that tend to do that are those that can be fairly new to dating, those that perhaps are a little damaged from a past relationship, those that have a little bit of an anxious attachment style, or are highly codependent. So there are psychological reasons that people will throw themselves out there without any expectations whatsoever. And I say, if you are one of those people, do get some help. As you know, Lyn, you can't just throw yourselves out there, and people are far too vulnerable.
Yes.
I was working with the BBC over the summer on a documentary all about scammers, and the common denominator was this vulnerability. And when people are exceptionally vulnerable and they don't have expectations, you are more susceptible to scamming. You are more susceptible to inviting a narcissist into your life. So, you will tend to have very high empathy as well. So you put others before yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really not good in dating. It's really not good. You are opening up a can of worms.
I think the sad thing around that is that usually they keep that to themselves and don't report it because they then feel ashamed of being stupid enough to fall for it, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And that was, again, another key denominator was a lot of people didn't want to even tell their families what was going on when they were being scammed, because they felt stupid. They felt ashamed, and they felt that, how could they have allowed this to happen? But it is very easy. And I do warn everybody that I come into contact with to just, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Really, really trust your instincts, because again, with all of these people, they wanted it to be right. They kind of felt and knew that it wasn't right, but they so desperately wanted it to work and be right. And these people were feeding them the right information. It was men just as much as women who were targeted.
Yeah, and usually it's very intelligent people that get sucked into these things, isn't it?
Absolutely. But the key thing is vulnerability, and also having no expectations when it came to dating. So they had nothing to measure someone against. So, do they meet my expectations? Do they meet what I'm looking for? So you've got one extreme to the other. That's somebody with no expectations and fairly low self-esteem and, more vulnerable. And I think if you are in that bracket, and anyone listening who is in that bracket, what I would say to you is don't be embarrassed to talk to people. The one thing I would say is just have one session with a coach, just to manage and create some expectations so that you can go into dating in a very healthy way.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic advice. So can you give us examples? Obviously, we want to maintain confidentiality, but have you got some case studies that would be good to share about, what are examples of unhealthy expectations?
Oh, yes, totally. Hundreds of them. So unhealthy expectations are often very visual things. So women tend to put a height that they want, and it always makes me laugh that the shorter the woman, the taller they want the man.
Really?
Yes. And I tend to find that some of the shorter guys, sort of between 5'7" and 5'8", 5'9", they're the ones that will work harder actually to keep a relationship, because they know they don't have the pick of the bunch, and they know that the women do want taller men. So they do tend to work a little bit harder. So I always tell people, unless you're going to be towering above somebody and you don't want that, and often guys don't want a woman that's taller than them, although we have matched many people that they are different. There is a difference in height. So I think from that perspective, keep a very open mind. We also have guys that tend to be quite sizist as well, and it doesn't cease to amaze me, but it always surprises me that very intelligent men that say, I want to have children, but she has to be a size 6 to 8, she has to be really petite. And I always have this conversation with them that women's shapes change hormonally when they have babies.
Yes.
Throughout their lives, unless they're fortunate enough to have a very good nutritionist and a personal trainer on hand, and work very hard at keeping physique, more often than not, from a realistic point of view, sizes and shapes do change. And I think that's quite hard for some people to understand and accept. So, I've had people that have come to me who've broken up with partners because their shapes changed. And I think, again, that's very sad. And it's not something that people should write off, and it shouldn't be an expectation. So I think visually, when things are like that, we can miss out on some real gems, actually. You can miss out on some really, really lovely matches and some good people because of physicalities.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has types and they have certain things that they look for. But one thing I always encourage people is look at the person, look at the personality, because as people get older, everything's going to change about both of you as you get older. And if you're looking for a long-term companion, as well as a lover and a friend, there've got to be other things other than the physical side. And lust doesn't last. And if you're meeting someone because the lust is there and it feels very sexy and everything feels on fire and very, very, very lustful and intimate, it usually fizzles out. So I always say to people, you've got to base it on more than just that as an expectation.
I suppose my response to the lust thing is that, for me personally, I think you can maintain that. I don't say you can maintain it 24/7, over decades, but certainly you can keep igniting that flame in a relationship. I've learned that's totally massively possible. Yeah.
Oh, it is massively possible, but both of you have got to be playing on the same team for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I think this is the problem, is often there's a mismatch. But I think, again, this comes down to communication. It comes down to how strong you are in your friendship. And yeah, lust is great. And yes, as long as you've got the friendship in place and the foundations in place for all the other areas in a relationship, then there's no reason why lust shouldn't continue. But it should continue on a deeper level, which is more intimate and you take it to new levels and new heights. But I think, you know, you've got to have the basics there, the friendship there, the camaraderie, the very much we're a team, rather than I'm me and you're you. You know, there's got to be both the individuality, but there's also got to be the coming together as and teamwork as a couple.
My sort of experience, I suppose, is like what you were saying. I feel that probably out of the two sexes, men are more visual creatures because they're just, you know, men, and they're different to women. So yeah, I understand what you're saying about, you know, usually it's the visual components that people have expectations around. Are there any other things that people have unrealistic or unhealthy expectations around other than the visual?
Yes, totally. There's lots of expectations about location, where people are located. Sometimes people won't go the extra mile, literally, to meet someone that's maybe a little bit further afield. If you fall in love with someone, there is always a way to come together geographically. I mean, I've had people who've got married from one end of the country to the other. I had a girl from the States come over and marry a guy over here. So, you know, I don't think geography for most people, if it's practical, you can always make it work. You can always make it work. And I think people do put up these barriers. And, you know, obviously for some people, if you've got children already and they're in a particular area and you don't want to move, and you've got good friendship groups set up, then I completely understand. And I'm not telling you to uproot your whole life, but I am encouraging people to just look a bit further afield for the right relationship.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And within that, obviously be mindful if they are further afield that you can see and speak to them beforehand to know that they are the genuine person that you think they are.
Oh, totally. And I mean, one of the things I always tell people to do is if you're meeting someone online or offline, have a video date with them so that you know exactly who you're meeting. Because especially if you're online dating, people will use photos that are not current, not up to date. You know, I've had people that have admitted to me that their photos are 15, 20 years old in some cases because they looked great then. And you just think, oh, no, please, you know, let's get this sorted properly. So I think from that perspective, you've got to be representing yourself honestly. And, you know, when you're looking at expectations, look at what you have to offer. Lots of people think, oh, well, I want someone tall, or I want someone slim, or I want someone who does this job, or I've got to meet someone who's an equal. But what is your equal? Who are you? What are you about? What have you got to offer? Because sometimes I'll have people who will say, oh, I've got to meet a fellow director, and actually they're not a director of a business. They're not intellectually in the same bracket as some other people that perhaps they're looking for. So I always say to people, you know, look for what's realistically going to be drawn to you, because, you know, people attract like for like. So what have you got to offer? Who are you, and what you know, what exactly can you bring to the table in this relationship? And I think before you even think about dating anybody, you've got to really understand more about you and who you are to date, really.
Definitely. And one of the other things, I don't know if you've found this, Genevieve, I'm sure you have, especially where women are concerned, they have unrealistic expectations or unhealthy expectations about how fast the relationship should move, and they're already, you know, fantasizing about getting engaged and married before they've even met the guy physically face to face.
Totally. And this tells me one of two things. It tells me that someone is highly codependent. And if you are having thoughts like that, you need to see somebody. Because what will happen is you'll have a microwave relationship rather than a conventional oven relationship, so to speak. So microwave will be very fast. And as it happens very fast, it will cool off very quickly as well. Whereas if you're actually having a proper relationship where it's going at a sensible pace, you can fall in love with somebody fairly quickly, and you can have all of those romantic notions and enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm also saying if you are rushing things and if you are running off with the farers a little bit. To me, that's a huge red flag. It turns men off enormously. It's the biggest turn off for men, is when a woman's trying to rush things, and men often want to set the pace. And I don't see anything wrong in both of you having healthy conversations about setting the pace. I don't think one person in particular should be responsible for that. But I also think that you need to have at least 10, 12 dates before you start thinking you're in a proper relationship, and actually talk to somebody, whoever you're dating, and actually say to them, where are we on this? Where are we? Are we now exclusive? Don't be frightened to have those conversations about exclusivity, about if you have been online, about coming offline, and about giving the relationship a go and telling friends and family about the relationship. But you really need to be having a couple of months under your belt and at least 10 to 12 dates behind you before you start thinking about anything other than, we're just working on getting to know each other.
Yeah, that you're just still in the dating phase rather than, you're sort of more, I suppose there's more commitment there about being exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have that conversation early on about being exclusive, great. If that's what you both want, then fantastic, that's brilliant. But if by date 10 to 12 you haven't had that conversation, then for me, I would be encouraging my clients to be speaking to someone about, where are we going? What do you want? Are you happy with everything? Do we class this as an exclusive relationship? Because, I think some people get carried away with it so much that they don't actually realise that perhaps the other person is still dating, or they're still talking to other people. And women in particular are frightened. They're terrified to have those conversations. And therefore, they're setting themselves up to fail again on the expectation side of what they expect in that relationship.
It's actually very healthy, isn't it, to set boundaries for yourself in terms of what is and isn't acceptable in a relationship. And men respect that.
Oh, totally. If you have no boundaries, and again, expectations come into play when it comes to boundaries, because if you have no boundaries and you have no expectations, then again, you're prime bait for a narcissist, you're prime bait for an abusive relationship. And you're also never going to be in an equal relationship, because you've not put yourself on an equal footing within that relationship from day one.
And I think it's quite attractive for men, to feel like, this woman actually values herself and has got boundaries, and, they might actually outwardly display that they're probably not happy about something you've said that shows that you've got boundaries, but actually inside, just know that they actually respect that, and they think, wow, you know what, this woman's high value.
Yeah, and actually men need the boundaries.
Yes.
just like women need the boundaries as well. But if you haven't got respect in a relationship, trust, respect, and also being authentic in that relationship. And for me, they're the three values and expectations that I encourage my clients to really hold on to. And they're the three main deal breakers that they should be looking for, is someone who's trustworthy, who's respectful, and who's authentic. And you can tell when someone's not being authentic with you. And are you being authentic in that relationship as well, or are you pretending to be something or somebody that you're not? Because again, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for a fall very quickly if you're not being authentic in that time that you're having with somebody on a romantic level.
Yeah, I 100% absolutely agree with that. Just be your best self and know that your best self is good enough.
Absolutely. And if someone's going to go because they're not attracted to you, don't try and change yourself, because it's never going to work.
No.
And I always say to people, don't be frightened to let a door close, because in my experience with all of my clients, and personally, as a door closes, another door will open. And often that door will be a better door for you to go through.
Absolutely. It's funny because with my partner, we've been together. I was in a marriage for 23 years before I met my partner, who I'm with now, and we've been together 10 years. And, with him in the early years, I actually, it was a bit tongue in cheek, but I suppose it come across a bit cheeky. But I actually said, if not this relationship, then something, I know I'm due something better, and I meant it, and he knows that.
Yeah,
and he knows I still mean that.
Totally. And I think, that's empowering, and it's empowering for both of you. I mean, I say to people, be in a relationship because you want to be together, not because there's a marriage certificate, not because there's children. Be in that relationship because you genuinely want to be a team, and you still want to care and love for that person unconditionally. And, no one else is going to come in and interfere with that. You're not going to allow that to happen, because sadly, I think, lots of couples, and there might be couples listening to this who are struggling a little bit, don't feel that you can't have those conversations and start redating your partner, because I think that's something that people forget to do. They just think, oh, we're in trouble, we're not having, it's not what it was, so they give up very easily and they move on. And I think sometimes, if you can say, we're all, every relationship's going to go through its ups and downs, and the roller coaster of emotions. Yes. And when one's flying high, the other one will maybe feeling a bit low and a bit down. If you can't support each other, and again, I'm a big fan of the word team in a relationship. And I think if you can't be a team in a relationship and bring each other up and support each other during difficult times, then you should be questioning whether you should be in a relationship, or if you need to do a bit of work on yourself, actually.
Yeah, I think it's always the case, it's far more empowering, rather than, and I had this conversation recently with somebody else as well, to ask yourself some questions around, how am I contributing to this situation if it's a challenging situation, rather than pointing the finger at your partner.
Absolutely. Always look inwards before you look outwards. And this is one thing that I think also we look at expectations when we've got people who are highly avoidant. Those people tend to have so many, things on their list that are unrealistic, and their list tends to be long. So if you've got more than 4 or 5 things on your list of what you're looking for in a partner, you really need to look at what are you avoiding? Are you setting yourself up to fail? Are you really wanting a relationship? Because if you've got so many things on there, then often you could be wanting to, but not really wanting to. So you say to friends and family, well, nobody meets my expectations. Nobody has everything that I'm looking for, and nobody will have everything that you're looking for. They never do. My thing is, I say to people, look for 3 things, and those 3 things have got to be 3 generic things. And if you don't see that on the first or second date, and I have a 3-date rule, is see someone 3 times unless you really physically and emotionally can't, there's nothing there for you. Because often I've had people and couples that have gone off and got married, but have turned each other down after the first date. I've had that happen so many times. But by the 3rd date, they've grown on each other, and they're seeing them in a slightly different light because the nerves have gone away. The sort of the airs and graces, and you start to see the real person by date 3. The glimmers start coming through.
And you see this in ordinary friendships, don't you? Especially probably in the workplace, where you probably don't initially like a guy to start with them, but after a while he starts to grow on you and you see a different side.
Oh, totally. And same with new colleagues. Someone comes in and you think, oh, they're a bit bullshit, or they're very quiet, or they're a bit full of themselves. We tend to, as a human race, judge very quickly. And often we can be guilty of misjudging. But sometimes, your natural instinct is right, but then you listen to other people and they'll say, oh, well, I'm not too sure on them. And it could even be your own insecurities that are mirroring and playing out. And, you can set other people up to fail very, very quickly, especially in dating. I think women in particular have become very, very analytical, overly analytical. And sometimes I will say to clients, do you really want to date? Do you actually really want a relationship? Because everything that you're telling me and everything you're displaying and all your actions are telling me something completely different. So, that again is somebody who's highly avoidant, someone who perhaps has been hurt, and someone who's got things that they need to work through. And again, I urge anybody who is struggling to get past a third date, or knows deep down in their heart that they're setting somebody up to fail, or they're setting themselves up to fail, they're not really in it properly, or that they have no idea if their expectations are realistic or not, is just have a chat. Coaches don't have to work with you for 20, 30 sessions. I don't know about you, Lyn, but I'm more than happy to have a one-hit wonder with a client just to get them on the right track.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that isn't any problem, I think mainly we're in this industry to create love and see more love in the world, and I'd much rather like you say, have a one-off session and know that I've given some great pearls of wisdom within that than and serve that person and understand that person and know that I care for them, then that's the most important thing for me.
Oh, totally. And sometimes you can get pressure from friends and family. Now, this is the other thing that throws expectations out of the window, because sometimes I'll look at somebody and I'll talk to them about expectations, and we'll have a little chat, and I'll say to them, I'll ask them for their expectations. And darn well that these are not their expectations. It's somebody else's that's been pushed onto them. So when you question people further, they'll say, but my mum thinks this, or my best friend tells me I should be looking for someone like this because I'm so wonderful. Well, you know what? Yes, I'm sure you are wonderful, and I'm sure you've got absolutely amazing things about you. But often friends and family are the worst people to go to for advice about finding love, because they will fill your head full of what they think you should hear to build you up and make you feel fantastic. And again, they will help you to create unrealistic and unhealthy expectations, and not what's out there, and not what the dating game is all about. Dating changes constantly. It's one of those things that as we've evolved as humans, I think dating's evolved at 300 miles per hour quicker than we have as humans. And some people that haven't dated in this century, they might be divorced, they might have come out of a long-term relationship, will have one awful shock to the system when they come to start dating, because things are very, very different, and they're every decade dating changes, and people's expectations change on a constant basis. So I think having a chat with somebody, understanding what the dating game is for you and what it should represent for you and how you should be representing yourself is a very powerful thing to do.
Yeah, and I think, going back to the friends and family thing, in terms of them offering advice and saying you should be doing this and you should be doing that, I call that allowing people to should all over you.
Yes. I mean, I love it when I get a parent that rings me up and says, I need you to find my son or daughter a husband or wife. And I love that. And I say, well, what does your son or daughter think about this? They don't know. Is the first answer. They don't know. Okay, so how do you expect us to understand what they want? Well, I'll tell you exactly who's the person they should be marrying, and you can find them, and then we'll structure something for them to accidentally bump into them.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
Every month. I have this conversation every month. And if you're a parent that's doing that, encourage your son or daughter to get in touch with us. They can come to events, they can come to drinks parties, they can just meet people on a very in a very natural way, or come for full-on matchmaking. But I always say to parents and friends and family, don't interfere. Please don't interfere with your child's love life, because your child's got to live with that person, not you. Your child has. So the best thing that you can do for your son or daughter, or for a friend or a loved one or someone that you care about, a colleague, anybody that you think really needs some help, is just give them a coach's number, a matchmaker's number, a professional's number, and let them get on with it, and gently support them, maybe go with them to an event and just support them in that process. But don't rush them into anything, and don't, I know it sounds hard, but I do feel that people can bully people into things because they want them to be doing this more than they want it for themselves.
Yeah. In other words, shooting all over their son or daughter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've had people ring me up, Lynn, saying, I've got to break them up. I've got to break up the relationship that they're currently in. Can you introduce them to somebody else? Because I know as soon as they see the right person and who they should be with, that they'll break up with somebody that's really unhealthy and not good for them. And I just tell them, please don't interfere. Just be there for them. Just be a good friend and be there for them and point them in the right direction when they're ready. That's all you can do.
Very wise advice, Genevieve. And on that note, what is the best contact information that you can provide should our audience members want to get in touch?
Yeah, well, there's two different businesses that I run. I've got Elect Club. So if they have a look at the Elect Club website, there's a contact us form, and they can contact me directly at Genevieve@electclub.co.uk, which is GENEVIEVE at electclub.co.uk. Or there's the Relationship Retreats, which is info@relationshipretreats.co.uk. And they're the retreats that we run to get people dating again, for couples as well who are going through difficult times, and for those who need to recover post-breakup. So, yeah, there's all sorts of things that we do to get people recovered, looking after themselves, having healthy expectations, and finding the right partner again.
Fantastic. Brilliant. I love it. And should you have missed that information, I'll, as always, make sure that that's included along with any other contact information to get in touch with Genevieve in all of the various ways that she's on social media.
Oh, yes, there's quite a few. But, I always love to hear from people, and whether it's for coaching, again, as you, Lynn, I'm happy to do one-off coaching sessions. If it's for a retreat, which is, almost 6 months worth of coaching in one weekend. We've got our festive retreat starting tomorrow, actually. So, we do them every month. So, we're busy bees, but we're busy creating the lives that we want to transform for you, really. And that's what we're passionate about.
Thank you so much. That's been really, really useful and wise information that's contained within today's episode. Thank you so much, Genevieve. Genevieve Gresset, my guest on today's podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
On that note, I'll end as always with true love starts with opening our hearts. Until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.